With this year's NBA season in full swing, it's time to make our playoff predictions. Hello everyone and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Destiny Sanchez alongside Brendan Conroy and Juan Mendez. Tonight we will be breaking down each conference, how we think the bracket will look in the new year, and a little talk about who could be the MVP this season. So gentlemen, let's start with the Eastern Conference. Right now we've got the Brooklyn Nets at the top. I'll start with you, Brendan. What do you think about the Eastern Conference?
So for the Eastern Conference, the one thing I'm looking for is that these guys, the same team doesn't get gypped by a shoe size, one size too big. The Brooklyn Nets, last season, they lost obviously late in the playoffs. This season, they are back and better than ever. The only team that can contest them, in my opinion, it's not Milwaukee, it's Chicago. Chicago has depth. They have Zach LaVine, they have Lonzo Ball, phenomenal shooters from every aspect. With Caruso, he's leading the team and the league in steals, 2.6 steals a game. That's contributing. When it comes to the Nets, they don't have as much depth right now. They're missing Kyrie to COVID protocol and stuff like that. But if he was to return, they have Harden, they still have Aldridge, Blake Griffin, and the one guy who stands out above all in the MVP race, Kevin Durant. He's averaging 28.6 points per game. That's leading. Curry, who's averaging 27.5, is in third place. So that 28.6 per game with KD, you saw it last year in the playoffs. He has to carry this team alone. He's done it before. He has Harden, but he's dropping noticeably 10 points more per game than Harden is in these past 2 weeks that we've seen them play. They lost to the Bulls recently by 4 points. It was a tough loss for them. But when they come back, hopefully, like I said, they get their point guard back, they get their playmaker. We should see them go deep in the playoffs and hopefully, regain their spot in the championship.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with that, especially giving the Bulls a lot of credit for what they're doing this season, turning things around. But you mentioned this team a little bit, and that is the Bucks, the team that I'm going to choose to win the East. And that is because they have a really solid record right now, but a lot of injury issues. In fact, they've won the last 9 of their 10 games. They started rough, but when they have Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the field, in the arena at the same time playing together, they're 10-0. If they're able to get everybody healthy at the same time, this team can win. And I haven't even mentioned, they're the defending champions. They did lose a few players, but they also got back new and young players coming into that team. They know how to rotate players really well. They have a lot of role players like Pat Connaughton, who can shoot threes and defend well in the perimeter. Drew Holiday, talking about defense. So this team has a lot of potential to still do it because they did it last year with a similar team. It's just injuries. You have to fight through the injuries and show that you're the champion for a reason, basically. So that's why I think the Bucks are going to probably win the East, depending on their health.
Moving over to the Western Conference, we have some teams in the top 6, 7 that could possibly win 50-plus games this season. Really good teams in the Western Conference. So what do you guys think about the West?
Oh, about the West. Well, I absolutely have to talk about the Warriors, a team that is dominating. They're tied in the West, 19-4. But that is still an outstanding record, and you could see it in their stats in all of them. They're top 3 in shooting percentage, 3-point percentage, points per game. They're leading in everything, in assists. They're leading in assists as well. And they're doing everything right. They're just managing the ball properly. They got a lot of players back, like Curry, for example, the main guy. And they're still waiting for somebody, who's Klay Thompson, a guy that dropped 37 points in a quarter. This team is scary, and they are not in the lead right now, clearly, but they might trend up towards that. And Andrew Wiggins is playing fantastic. Draymond Green, again, talking about role players. So this team it's commanding the West, even though they are tied with another certain team that's playing fantastic. But the Warriors, I am going to believe that they are going to keep it up and win this Western Conference.
Yeah, and as I told you earlier, Juan, I'm not surprised you went with these Warriors. I know how much you love your UCLA Bruins. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay a little in the West, obviously. I'm going to stay close to California, and I'm going to go with the reigning champs of the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are on an unbelievable streak. They didn't have Devin Booker for their last couple games, but they have Chris Paul. And what can Chris Paul do? He can pass. He's leading the league with 10.6 assists per game. They have DeAndre Ayton, who is a phenomenal in-the-paint scorer, is rough in the paint, can get those baskets in. The Suns were already in it last year. You saw them. They played the Bucks. Unfortunately, they fell late in the series, but they have Devin Booker. They have guys, like I said, veterans like Chris Paul, guys who know how to get to where they need to go, and they have the experience. Devin Booker is a young player. If he's hurt for a couple games, that's fine. That's not a big deal. With Kyrie, guys like that, they kind of drag out the injury, where Devin Booker wants to play. All 3 of these big guys on the Suns, they want to play. They were eager to get there. Chris Paul has so much fight in him because of his age. So these Suns want to get to where they want to go. They have championship in their mind. They got snubbed last year. They feel, look, we lost to the Bucks. It was basically just Giannis from what they can see, because Giannis went off, basically carried the team. So with these Suns potentially making it back into the championship, I feel like, in the finals rather, they have a very good chance of making a statement.
So you guys mentioned the Warriors a bit there. Quite the contrast from last year. They were much lower in the ranks than they are now, so I think that's really great and pretty exciting for the Western Conference. Now to move over to MVP conversations. There are a lot of different people that may be up for this recognition. So Brendan, who do you think may win the MVP this season?
Well, Destiny, I know I talked a lot earlier about Kevin Durant and how he's leading in scoring of the league. He's a big player. But the guy I got to go with is the greatest point guard of all time, Stephen Curry. Curry is back to his 15-16 self. He is playing phenomenally. He's making 5.4 three-pointers per game, shooting 93% from the line. His brother was doing that last year, so he said, why not me do this? Like, why don't I do this now? Why don't I keep scoring? He is shooting phenomenally from three. He is on the track to break Ray Allen's three-point record, which is huge. Because if you've seen how many three-pointers he makes in a season, it is out of this world. He's on track this season to make north of 463s, which would shatter his record of 402, which he had back in his 15-16 season. Like I said, his MVP season, his back-to-back seasons were in those years. He is in such a good spot right now to help these Warriors. He's contributing to their 19-4 record. He's putting up 27.5 points per game. He's third in scoring. Without Klay Thompson, he's got a lot of slack to pick up, and he is doing just that. Like Juan mentioned earlier, he's got guys like Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and they need a veteran like Curry. They need a playmaker and a leader like him. Who better than the best point guard of all time? This guy right here. I think he could make a very strong case for another MVP on his record.
He definitely could make another strong case, and I agree with everything you said. It's hard to not say Curry is the best player right now in basketball, but I will have to say another name. I just mentioned it because he did win it last year, and even though he is battling injuries, you cannot count him out, and that is Nikola Jokic, who his team, like I said, is battling injuries, still carrying them to a good record, and if those injuries in that team continue, he has to assume a bigger role. A great example in comparison is when Russell Westbrook got the MVP, and he got it and had all those great stats, averaging a triple-double because he didn't have a great team around him. And Jokic might face that in this season because he's having to assume a lot of responsibilities. He's averaging 27 points, almost 14 rebounds, and about 5 assists. So incredible stats. And Jokic, you know how dangerous he is in every single asset of the game. And he could still trend up with that and just perform amazing for the Nuggets. And as I said, if this team has a lot of injuries, he's going to have to assume a role, take over. And if he could take them to the playoffs, you could really argue that he could get the MVP 2 seasons in a row. So Nikola Jokic is my pick for that.
There's a lot of talent all across the NBA, and I'm really excited to see who will get that MVP recognition, as well as the Eastern and Western Conference, how those two conferences will play out at the end of the season. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Penn State Sports Night. For Brendan Conroy and Juan Mendez, I'm Destiny Sanchez, and we'll see you in the new year. Happy holidays.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.